Hey guys, Kayla here. I'm going to talk about communicating science in this little mini lecture, which is a really important topic. The whole point of doing science is essentially to build our collective knowledge on certain subjects. And so you can't really do that if you're not able to effectively communicate the results of your studies and what you're trying to figure out and things of that nature. You know, no one's going to be able to help you out. You're not going to be able to learn very well if you're not able to talk to people and get your science out there. So it's actually a really important topic that I see come up a lot, and I've seen a lot of bad scientific presenters. So we're going to talk about some tips and tricks to be able to overcome that kind of thing. So if you're going to give a scientific presentation, which anyone who does any kind of research like that will probably do in some capacity, before you start, you need to take a deep breath, chill, build up your confidence kind of, because you know you're gonna mess up a little bit, and that's okay. No one speaks perfectly, and so all you have to do is go back and just make sure you correct yourself. It's not a big deal if you mess up, and try and kind of, if you can, be as friendly with your audience as possible, kind of interact with them and everything like that. They're going to remember you much better if you are joking with them and talking to them in an honest way. So that's definitely one of your first things you need to do. When you're preparing your presentation, really think about like who your audience is and what they might know about your subject matter. So at UAH, I've been to a lot of seminars, and a lot of times these speakers come in and bless their hearts, they come in and they just go. They just hit it. They don't even consider their audience. And I mean, most of us in the room have definitely a background in biology, but biology gets pretty niche, like really niche. And there's a lot of topics that people may not really have a very broad understanding of. So something you really need to consider before you start talking is, who is your audience? What might they know? And sometimes it's good to give a little bit more background information than you might think that they need, rather than less, because no one can keep up with you if you come in, if you just blast all up in here and you're just like, yes, on gene 1357, the methylization, blah, blah, blah. If you're just, I mean, those are fine words, but if you just come in and you hit it, you're going to leave some people in the dust who might be able to help you out with your project or point you in the right direction if you make it clear what in the heck you're talking about to begin with. Think about, like, what do you want them to get out of your presentation? That's pretty important. You need to think about, like, why are you doing this presentation in the first place? What do you want people to learn? What are your big main, like, core messages there? Try to avoid presenting any fluff that isn't, like, going along with the main message that you're talking about. Really come in and start with a strong introduction so that people know what's going on, why it matters, why it's important, and then definitely, like, build on it from there. When you're preparing for your presentation, definitely outlining, like, key notes is pretty helpful. Like, whenever I'm going to present, generally I'll write a list of, like, here's an important thing to mention, here's an important thing to mention, here's an important thing to mention. I don't want to forget these things. You want to practice what you're going to say so that you're not just speaking sentences and hoping you just find your way along the way as you speak. And you don't want to read off your notes. That makes for a really boring presentation. You want to avoid doing that as much as possible. No one's going to care as much if you just sit there and read your presentation, because then they're just like, well, you could have just sent me this PowerPoint and it's basically the same thing. You want your talk to be pretty well versed, not specifically memorized. You want to be able to be kind of flexible about what you're going to be talking about, maybe throw in a joke or two, etc. And if your presentation is timed, keep practicing your presentation with a stopwatch until you can do it with your eyes closed. That's going to be the best way to really look professional and put out a great presentation out there. But again, be flexible. Things are going to happen. Someone is going to like cough really loudly and other things like that. Try not to let it throw you off. It's hard not to, but it happens. If you've got a slideshow or a poster, try and keep things simple. I have a problem with that. I like putting as much info as possible in my slideshows and posters and things so that if someone has issues with hearing and things, they can at least read along. But what it tends to do is it tends to make people just read and not really listen to you. And when you're talking, you want to kind of like have like your main points on there, right? But you want them to listen to you for all the like hyper specifics and things like that. So you definitely don't want to put too much information in your presentation or your poster, or you kind of alienate your audience and you make them not want to listen to you in the first place. Make sure that your presentation is accessible for people who are red-green colorblind, things like that. I had 2 classmates out of 7 in one class, and I would be like, well, what do you think the graph means? And they'd be like, I don't know. And I'd be like, what do you mean you don't know? And they'd be like, it's gray. I see nothing. What's going on? And I'd be like, oh, I've never even thought about how much that impacts things. So keep that in mind for sure. It's something a lot of people forget about, and it kind of does alienate a whole lot of scientists, especially male scientists, since it tends to run it runs with the X chromosome, you know. And if you only have one, you don't have that backup. But anyways, and try and keep your format consistent. Don't be using Comic Sans. I'm just gonna say that right now. Don't come in here using Comic Sans or Wingdings or whatever in your presentations. Keep your format consistent, professional, and good looking. Include some pictures. People love pictures. No one likes to sit there for 45 minutes and listen to a presentation on oxygen reduction in blah 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 without at least some sort of a visual, like a model or something. Anything you can put in there. If you can put in cute pictures of animals, even better. So that's kind of the main points. I've just seen a lot of people communicate science poorly, and I think that really alienates scientists from the average person. And at this point in mankind's timeline, it's really important that we as scientists are able to communicate effectively to the public our findings, our research, our discoveries, and we can discuss things with them. And you can talk to everyone from like masters of your field to people who have very little grasp on anything, because those people deserve to understand what's going on as well. So anyways, that's just sort of the main tips and tricks to presenting a good presentation. Hopefully that's helpful.